Hello lovely people! This week I am bringing you my thoughts on the Raven cycle.
Save your vlogs!
What I've decided to do is I've decided to do it a little bit differently than how I might have done it. Vague. Essentially, I'm currently, as of recording this intro, 2 books into the Raven cycle. I thought it might be interesting to record this series wrap-up in a similar way that I did my mid-year reading check-in, where I'm going to talk to you about my thoughts on the first 2 books, having just read them in quite quick succession. So then when I read the 3rd and 4th book, I'll give you my thoughts immediately after finishing those, and then at the end of the video, I'll do like a wrap-up, my whole thoughts on the series in general. I just thought this might be quite an interesting way to see how my reading experience changes as the series goes on. I don't know. If you're watching this, I'm assuming that you have read the entire Raven cycle, because otherwise there's gonna be spoilers. But also, equally, if you haven't finished all of the Raven cycle, maybe just watch up to where you're at and then finish the rest later. I don't know. I don't really know how this is gonna work, but I'm gonna go for it. So, I'm also not gonna give any plot summary. That's what I'm saying. So, starting off with the Raven cycle. This was interesting. Okay, right. First of all, we need to address something. I was not expecting to see one of my historical faves, Owain Glyndŵr, just like show up in this book. I thought it was to do, I was like, oh, there's some mythology thread. I didn't realise the mythology thread was like one of my favourite historical figures. So, I should say, I'm coming into this with a fair bit of Owain Glyndŵr knowledge because I find him really interesting. So I have read books about Owain Glyndŵr. So, on the one hand, I was thrilled to see him pop up. On the other hand, I do not buy the nonsense that he somehow was like, oh, you know where I'll go? America. Don't believe that. Like, in this first book, I had a stumbling block where I was like, why didn't you just set this in Wales? It took me a little while to get over that, because I was like, we're using a legendary, well, like, Owain Glyndŵr was a real guy, but there's this legend that has built up around him. And I was like, why are you drawing on one of, like, Welsh history's biggest figures and then not setting the book in Wales? But, like, I sort of get that there are aspects of this which you need to be in America for. I do get that and see that. But yeah, that was the thing I had. I was also really wondering, because if we're drawing on, like, Welsh figures and history and stuff, there's this mythical Welsh prince called Madog, and the idea of Madog is there was this theory at one point that somehow Madog had gone over to America before any other Europeans had discovered America, had settled there, and that amongst the Native American tribes there was one tribe that spoke Welsh. And it was essentially this propaganda regime on behalf of, like, Elizabethan times, where it was like, we've got a claim to America because this guy discovered it before any of you guys did, when in actuality it didn't happen, it's not real. But I had this whole thing for a while where I was like, maybe that's gonna come into it, and maybe we're gonna, like, tie up these, like, Welsh links with America, because Wales and America have an interesting, like, history going on there, insofar as, like, lots of Welsh people travelled and went across to America as early settlers, because when you're being slightly persecuted by, like, the ruling classes of your own country, a lot of people went over to America. It's the same with, like, why Quakers went to America. We're going on to a tangent. This isn't about the Raven cycle. I will get back to the Raven cycle. My point was, super hyped about the inclusion of Welsh history, yay. A little confused about the American setting in regards to Welsh history, but going with it. And also having lots of little theories that I don't think are anything to do with the plot, and it's just me being like, but what if we brought in these other Welsh mythology things I like? So that's that. Onto characters. I found it much easier to get a sense of who all of the boys are in this book than of who Blue is. And I feel like partly that might be to do with how Blue's power is that she increases the power of others, and I don't know, with this first book I just felt a lot like I didn't really get who Blue was. She didn't feel very defined to me. She felt like a presence in other people's lives, not as an independent character of her own. Spoilers when I talk about this book, that changed a little bit in this book, but for this first book I was like, invested in these boys and their relationship with each other. I was interested in these threads. I didn't dislike Blue, I just didn't feel like I knew who she was. There were a few moments in this where I was like my heart was like, oh god. And I think that that's probably going to be something that's going to recur a lot. I think this series might destroy me emotionally slightly. But I also really enjoyed Maggie Stiefvater's writing style. I know a couple of people who don't like the way she writes, but actually it's kind of a style which I really enjoy, so that was fun. So on the whole, I read the first book and I was like, signed up. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I was ready to go. I also literally, I finished this book, I got off the bus, I went down this nature reserve, and I found a direction that was to the Raven Trail, and I found a tree carved in the shape of a bird. And I was like, if this isn't the universe telling me something, I don't know what's going on. The Dream Thieves intrigued me because the Dream Thieves focuses a lot more on Ronan, and you get Ronan's perspective, you get a better sense of Ronan, and I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed getting sort of, I don't know, Ronan was not like one note, but like in the first book you see how Ronan is presenting himself, and Ronan presents himself in a way that does not reflect everything that's going on with him. So it was really interesting. I enjoyed diving a bit more into him and like getting a sense of like why he is the way he is and stuff like that. I also really enjoyed this slightly more explicit like magical powers coming to the forefront type thing. Essentially, I also would like to give a shout out to Miriam over at Between Lives and Life, because I essentially just sent her lots of very emotional messages of my reading journey on this, because I was 100%, I was like, Ronan's in love with Gansey, I guarantee it. But then as the book went on, I enjoyed how that played out, how it was like, yeah, there's stuff there, but also it's not quite what you think about it, and blah blah blah. Like, there could have been a lot more like faffing around, but actually we were like, okay, this is vague. I did feel like I got a slightly better sense of Blue in this. I still don't think that I know her super well, but I'm getting more of a sense of who she is as a character, which was interesting. I would like to see that continue a bit more, would be nice. But yes, I think essentially what I liked about this book is you have this one where like Blue is getting to know the Raven boys, and she's seeing like the exterior, like how they're all presenting themselves, blah blah blah. And this book, we are like breaking those people down. Everyone in this book, Blue, Gansey, Adam, Ronan, everyone they are disintegrating in some way. It's all coming apart. There are these moments and these actions that are happening that is destabilizing who they are at their very core, and that is resulting in all of this like emotional like unraveling of people. And it was both like slightly heartbreaking because you're seeing that happen, but also like it helps you really understand who they are more, because you understand what are the key, like those holders that are what helps them stay who they are and keeps them in place and keeps them together. When you take those away, that tells you so much about who a person is. So I really enjoyed that aspect of this. I enjoyed like these relationship issues, because it shows you again how these relationships were built, how they're going to go forward, all these questions, how is this group going to maintain and stay together. That was really interesting, and I'm aware that that's probably going to continue, and I'm probably going to like cry over it at some point, but I'm still excited because that's the sort of like meat that I'm interested in getting into. Like, I don't feel like we are yet to meet our big climactic like bad guy, I don't know a better way of saying it, like antagonist. Like in both of these two books there has been an antagonist and there has been a sense of threat, but it has also been something which has been easy to resolve at the end of the, not easy, but you know, resolved at the end of each book. I'm wondering if on this quest, is there a bigger foe that we're going to encounter at some point, or is it going to keep being that part of it is there is like X foe, you deal with that situation, but then the greatest stuff is all this like big, I don't really know. That's what I'm saying. I'm interested in this, like I absolutely loved Ronan's moment of sort of like claiming oneself and acknowledging. I love these moments in books, specifically like middle grade YA type things, a lot of the time where like someone faces up to something and acknowledges that it's a part of themselves. It's very Wizard of Earthsea to me as well, stuff like that, and like Tiffany Aching and I don't know, these things that I really like. So I really enjoyed this journey on Ronan's part of like understanding and claiming, and when you claim the thing, it no longer has the power to hurt you because it's yours, and I liked that. So that is my thoughts, slightly rambly and incoherent, I apologise, but those are my thoughts immediately post-finishing these two. I don't really know where we're going. I don't really understand how we're going to tie all this up without the inevitable outcome of Gansey dying. I'm going to see what happens. The next footage you'll see is me post-book 3, I imagine. Time has passed. It's September. I have a cold, but I have just finished Blue Lily Lily Blue. This was really great. Great. Top quality content. Okay, I have some real character thoughts upon finishing this one. I think I said last time that I really enjoyed the Dream Thieves because I really enjoyed getting a perspective into like Ronan and who Ronan is as a character. A similar thing with Blue Lily Blue is I feel like in this book we really built up much more of a cast of supporting people. Earlier on I think a lot of the focus was on that core group, whereas in this one there are people who have been present I now am much more emotionally attached to. I feel like we've got like a real like supportive core cast, and so then when something happens to those supportive core casts, it really hits me. So I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying that we're opening up our little world a bit, I think. Also, I think one of the things I said last time was that I was really struggling to connect to Adam in book 2, and I feel much more connected to him in this book, and I was thinking about it, and I think that partly one of the things that's happening in book 2 is that Adam is disconnected from himself, and this deal he's made with Caveswater and stuff is something that he's having this moment of disconnect, so it makes sense that I'm not connecting to him, because like, who is he? He's trying to work that out. I feel like he's getting more of a handle on himself and his connection with Caveswater in this book, so then I'm having much more of an emotional attachment to him. Like, there are moments in this, like for example when the boys turn up for his court hearing, good lord, I wanted to cry. It's these, and this, oh, when he's talking to Caveswater and he's like, I'm sorry, I'm damaged, and all these things, and I've found myself having real Adam feelings, which I did not have previously in this series. I was like, I don't really care, he's angry and it distresses me and blah, and now I'm just like, oh my god, you poor child, yes. So that's an interesting development. I also mentioned, I'm trying to like remember the points I've mentioned before and then like respond to them, like where I'm at with this book. I think I also did say about like, I'm into like Welsh history. Owain Glyndwr is like, I'm a fan. I kind of liked that this book explored, like gave me a little bit more explanation for maybe why you would have put Owain Glyndwr's body in America, because previously I still am a bit, I'm just like, why America? What connection? And that's dabbled into a little bit more here and talks in terms of like ley lines and stuff like that. It does still niggle me that we're using anglicised spelling of like Glendower and stuff. That bothers me a bit, because like Glyndwr. But you know, that's just me being real pernickety. But I am still loving, I'm loving this weaving in some extra characters like Iolo and like Gwenhwyr and all that sort of thing. In regards to Gwenhwyr, I'm like, she's doing all these songs and everything, and I'm so aware that when I reread this series, the things she's saying are gonna be important. There's meaning there that I'm at my stage of reading not taking in. It's all nonsense right now, and I just can tell that it's gonna be one of those things that you do a reread and you're like, oh my god, this is what she's talking about. So I have that like delicious thing where I'm really enjoying taking my time because it's really great, and it's like first time read. You never get to do your first time read again, so I'm really savouring that. But at the same time I have all this like anticipation for when I do my reread. I know that there's moments that they're gonna cut into me because I'm gonna be like, oh my god, based on what happens in the future. And there's going to be these moments where I read these things that characters are saying and I'm just like, oh, you have no idea. Oh, and God, yes. So, all of her like songs and stuff like that. I feel like there's probably more significance there that I'm not taking, and I'm also really interested, just like when I've seen how this all plays out, just to reassess like her introduction and that sort of thing. Noah, I have real Noah feelings. I just don't see how this is going to end in a way that's not going to make me cry over Noah, because he's dead. Either like he didn't, and there's a moment at the start of this where he obviously says about how like Blue asks him like, do you want us to look into helping you move on, and he just says no. So like, is the outcome Noah just remains a ghost forever, which is deeply sad because eventually these people will die and he will be all alone? Is the outcome that somehow Noah's gonna move on, but also like that's sad because then he's dead for real? Gansey's being a real sweetheart and being like, we'll ask for Noah's life, and then he has no idea that everyone else is like, no babe, we're asking for your life for our favour. And it's just like this little group of people who love each other so intensely. Like, everyone in this group loves each other. Even like Blue and Ronan have been a bit antagonistic, but then in these books there are real moments like when they're like down in the cave and stuff that you're like, oh no, it's just who you are, but you care about each other deeply. So like, this group of kids who are like, we're gonna save your lives, we would die for each other, blah blah blah. It's really getting me. Like, I love a good like found family, sort of like that sort of thing, and I'm getting those vibes. Essentially, I feel myself, I feel like I'm gonna read the fourth book and it's gonna emotionally destroy me. That's where I'm at with my life. I'm not gonna read it now. I am not in the right state of place to be reading this. I need to read it in like, not on the bus, which is where I do most of my reading because commuting. I need to like read it alone in my house so that I can cry, which is what I'm expecting to do. Yes, I'm excited to see. Well, oh yeah, shit, yeah, sorry, forgot to mention the big old thing of waken the sleeper you're not supposed to waken. Fucking Neve, am I right? I knew she was gonna come back, but I also wasn't expecting her to come back. So like, she appeared and I was like, of course, but also like, oh my god, I didn't see that coming, which is a weird simultaneous place to be. So yeah, they really, I feel like stuff is about to get really like emotionally heartbreaking. That's where I'm at. I've probably forgotten stuff in my delirium, but I'm fueled by Lensit right now, so will all forgive me, I hope, and I can talk about these things in more depth when I do my actual wrap-up of the whole thing when I finish the whole thing. Yes, next time you see me will be future me, who has read The Raven King and probably has cried her little tiny heart out. So I finished The Raven King. On a very superficial note, I think this one might be my favourite cover. I really like the like brush strokes and stuff you can see here, to the ravens and stuff. Oh god, feelings of Gotham. On the whole, I really enjoyed the series. It's been a bit of a rollercoaster whirlwind. I am really looking forward to rereading this when time has passed and I've sat with it for a bit, because I feel like, I think I've already said this maybe last book, I can't really remember. I feel like there's going to be a lot of stuff that benefits from a reread now that I know how it all ends. I feel like there's probably going to be moments which are a bit more heartbreaking. Specifically, I know, like, in my head I'm like, oh yeah, Gansey, all of that stuff, but in my actual head I'm like, Noah's where I would like to begin, because, and I said this last time, like, there was no way that Noah's story was really going to end in a way that didn't make me feel sad, but I feel deeply sad, because, please correct me if I've misread, because I don't, it's just, has Noah disappeared from their lives, like, they don't remember Noah, is that right? Because there's like a line about, something about like slipping from time or something. I can't remember the wording, but you know, so the reveal is that this has been a cyclical thing. Noah has done this journey a number of times, and now that he's finally doing it this way, and he's the one who's really saving Gansey. And number one, like, there wasn't enough Noah in this book for me, I think, but maybe that's just because he is fading. Because that, like, he just keeps dying for them, and then he does the final, like, he's now sacrificed, and it's just the fact that they might not remember knowing him that makes me so deeply sad. So that's just like an emotion I'm always going to have now. Let's talk about the Gansey situation. Let's talk about this, like, dead and then not dead. I think maybe I don't know how to feel about the Gansey thing, because I don't really feel like we've got a proper glimpse of all the implications of this whole Caves Water bringing, you know, he's him but he's different, but from what I've seen of Gansey, I don't know how he's different. He seems very much the same. Like, what does that mean? I feel like one of the things, I think I have a lot of questions, so I really enjoyed this. I would like to get that out there. I did really enjoy this. It's left me with a lot of questions, and that's potentially a deliberate thing, you know, but it is a thing. So one of my things is the Gansey, oh god. Okay, let's start from the beginning. I'm a mess, and I'm all over the place. The, discovering the tomb being, you know, Glyndor's not going to rise, that's not going to happen, is, in many ways, now that I think about it, I don't know what the alternative would have been. I don't know how the Glyndor situation would have unfolded if he hadn't have been, like, beyond resurrection. That's something to just ponder upon, I think. I think what I liked about this way of doing it is, like, that moment when Gansey just, like, breaks and has that cry and everything, because the way you see, how you see Gansey through Blue's eyes in book 1, and the type of person she perceives him to be, I feel like he's been unravelling for the whole 4 books, and I think that's partly what I said about, like, second and third books, is you really see, like, a lot of traumas coming up, a lot of, like, these people who are originally seen through Blue's eyes to be, like, you know, just like the Raven boys, whatever, like a privileged little student boys type thing. You really see the things that are the things that make them unravel, and that moment, Gansey's complete, like, everything he's been doing was for naught, and then just, like, experiencing that was one of, like, the really powerful moments in this book. I feel reading that was so, like, it so got me. And then, you know, like, the bonds between these people, and I think that's one of the things I feel sad about in regards to Noah, because with this you have such a strength of this, is those bonds that tie Gansey, Blue, Adam and Ronan together in all the ways, permutations that those manifest. And it just made me sad, because it used to be that, like, Noah was a part of that, and now he's just, like, a little sad loss. I need to stop talking about Noah, because it makes me sad. And then, in regards, I feel like I haven't really processed the scene of Gansey's actual death, because I was so fucking gripped, because I was like, what the fuck, guys? That I just, like, you know, you just, like, read it, you're just like, oh my god. I felt like I did that a bit. I feel like I need a bit more time to sit with, like, some of these things. I don't know how I feel. I don't think I ever expected Gansey to stay dead, which, like, resurrection tropes as a thing, if you overuse resurrection tropes, it sort of loses a lot of emotional impact. So there's, like, part of me that really enjoys, like, there's a lot of sci-fi shows or, like, fantasy shows or stuff where it's like, did you see them die? Even if you did that, maybe they're still not dead. Like, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't know how I feel about it in the Gansey situation, because I feel like I always expected there to be a way out somehow. So I don't know how. I was sad when he died, but I don't know how sad I was, because I was sort of just waiting for the moment when they were like, okay, we're going to fix it, which they did do. I don't know if that's a criticism or not. I don't really know what are my criticisms. I'm just, like, processing through a camera, I think, is what we're doing. But yeah, so there's these repercussions of the Caves Water situation deal they did. I would be interested to know how that's going to manifest. I don't know if we're going to know how that manifests. I don't know what Call Down the Hawk, like, I know it's kind of about Ronan. I don't know if you get to see any of this. I have feelings and thoughts. In regards to Ronan and Adam, I really enjoyed seeing how their relationship sort of, like, in this really takes hold and becomes a thing. It's interesting because, like, Blue and Adam, I can kind of understand why they were interested in each other, but like it's patently clear that they would not have worked. But it's interesting to sort of contrast that with how Adam is with Ronan. I think I feel in some ways that Adam and Blue didn't really understand who each other were. They had like they sort of kind of were just getting to know each other, whereas what's interesting about Adam and Ronan is, even though, like, even in the first book they're a bit antagonistic to each other, their antagonism, which then morphs into the relationship, at both of those stages there's a real, like, kind of understanding of who each other is, if that makes sense. Like, when they're trying to piss each other off, they know the buttons to push to do so. There are reveals and understandings. I'm not saying they've always known each other to the extent that they now know each other, but like the growing understanding of each other comes from a deep place of sort of knowing each other, whereas I feel like a lot of Adam and Blue's relationship, I enjoy the moments that they get to be a bit more friends, because I sometimes just don't feel like they really understood who each other were at their core. Like they understood like an aspect of each other, but maybe that's not the aspects that they need to be understood to be like connected in a relationship with someone. I don't know. Oh, one thing I really liked that was addressed is, I said in my first thing, I was like, I don't understand why this story is taking place in America. The whole explanation to do with the tree people, I've forgotten what they're called, and like Blue's heritage and stuff like that, and the way that like this whole like tying it into like Wales and how like those trees were destroyed and blah blah blah, like I'm just happy that it was kind of addressed as to why it doesn't really make sense that it's happening in America. And then so like I feel like there's of my concerns have been sort of allayed a bit. At least they've been addressed, and I like that. In regards to I have so many threads, I don't know how to react. I feel like I have so many questions about characters that I don't feel like we've really got a lot of closure with. So like the psychics, the Foxway ladies, what's going on there? Like, is Maura okay? Gwenhyen, what's happening with her? What was the point of her? I don't know. This... Also, like, the Grey Man, what's going on there? I have so many questions about characters that I got really attached to, and I don't know what's happened to them, and I'm just like... But in many ways it is like a testament to how attached I have become to characters, so, you know, I'm not necessarily being like, Maggie, but also, could you tell me what happened? I think one thing that I find interesting is reading this knowing that there's Call Down the Hawk is about to happen, / by the time I post... When I'm recording this, it hasn't been released yet. By the time I'm posting this, it will have been. I think one of the things that's interesting is this is a series that ends on Ronan and on dreaming, and I think that makes sense knowing that his story is going to be continued. It's kind of like the whole Gansey chapter has sort of been closed now, and now we're going off into Ronan, because Ronan in many ways, like, Ronan and the Grey Warren and the dreaming stuff existed before Gansey's quest began, and so it's kind of like this Raven cycle is Gansey's O Englander, all of that questing, and now that's ended here, so our final note is on Ronan, because like that's a topic that has not reached a conclusion or whatever. What I'm going to do is I'm going to end here because I feel like I'm still like immediately processing stuff. The next clip is going to be some general thoughts once I have like got my shit together, and also some additional thoughts on this if I have them when I've actually like processed Sophie. So I'm gonna stop because I feel like this is a ramble and a half, and the next clip will hopefully be a bit more coherent. Hello, as promised, here are some slightly more coherent thoughts to end it on. I made a couple of notes on my phone of things which I realised that I liked that I forgot to talk about last time. One of which was, I mentioned about Gansey and this like breakdown moment and stuff. I enjoy seeing the unravelling of Gansey. Bearing in mind his friends have always just been like, oh yeah, that's just Gansey, blah blah blah. Like, no, the guy is like deeply like breaking apart as the series goes on. But one thing I liked is that the unravelling, it's not like just unravels and then he's just like a mess. It's unravelling, and the unravelling is what leads to him finally claiming his power, because there's this whole thing about how, you know, he doesn't he has this power to command, but he doesn't like commanding. It's like this expectation of like, he knows when he's found his close friends, and he just like hopes that they're gonna do the things he wants them to do because of like love rather than like command. And I liked that in this one, Gansey starts to accept that that is his power. Like when Noah is generally, like, how many words for unraveling can you have for like different humans? But you know, Gansey says be Noah, he commands, and I liked seeing him accept that he has that power to command. And when he does like find Glendower, like again, commanding. Also the fact that he's known all along that he's gonna die. I saw on Goodreads that some people liked that, some people didn't like that. It reminded me so strongly of Harry Potter, because one of the lines that decimates me in the final Harry Potter book is when Harry is, it was not after all so easy to die, and it's like this moment of like they're gonna do it, and they're ready, and they're gonna, you know, they're gonna make the sacrifice, but it's not easy to do that. And it's with Gansey, you get it where it's like he's finally thinking of what he wants to do after Glendower. I'm starting to call him Glendower now because that's how the book is rather than Glendower. Look at me, I've changed. But you know, like the what makes it so heartbreaking is if at the start of the quest it had been like, okay, you have to die, he's like, right, ready, find Glendower, sorted. Whereas like, you know, it happens when you have something that you want to live for, and that's what makes it so heartbreaking. So, you know, like tears, weepage, sadness. Okay, I'm gonna sort of stop rambling about the Raven King there, because I feel like, honestly, I feel like it's going to take me time to really sit with and figure out all of my feelings about that book, just because it's such a culmination of like 4 books that I've ended up getting so invested in. So I'm just going to do a quick little like wrap up section of the 4 books. I gave The Raven Boys 4 stars, really enjoyed it, getting into this world, yes. I gave The Dream Thieves and Blue Lily Blue both 5 stars, because those are the 2 books where I felt like I really started to like connect really to all of these characters rather than just some of these characters. I really started to feel it sort of like gel as a group. I gave The Raven King 4 stars because I think I really enjoyed it, but there are lots of loose ends that I kind of wish I had a bit more on. Just realised I've never talked about Henry. As a whole character, I quite like Henry, but also I felt a bit sad because I felt like Henry was becoming the 4th member while Noah was like slipping out of the group, and I still am distraught about Noah, so like we're gonna sit with that. But I gave The Raven King 4 stars because there are lots of things I like about it, but also I do feel like I have some like loose end things that make me less satisfied. I think what I'm going to be interested to do, I already know that this is a series I want to reread, because I as I have said probably a number of times, there are all these things which I'm like, this feels like something which might be foreshadowing, but I don't know what it's foreshadowing. Whereas now I do know how it all ends, I would really be interested in going back and doing a reread and seeing if there's all these things that I pick up on and stuff, you know, like reading meaning into stuff which previously I was just like, don't know why that's important, but it feels like it is. I am obviously going to give it a little bit of time, because I think a reread is going to help, like, in a little bit of time when I've processed things a bit more. Suffice to say, super enjoyed. Thanks, guys, for the recs. Excited about Call Down the Hawk. No idea where it's going. Probably won't get my hands on it for a while because I'm trying to work through the books I own, but I am very excited to see everyone's reactions. By the time this goes up, it's going to have been put on sale, and there will be lots of reactions, I imagine, and I will be like, whoo, but also avoiding all spoilers. On the whole, had a cracking time. Got some emotional feelings. Wasn't expecting such a roller coaster, but here we are. I would love to hear from you. Have you, well, number one, congrats on getting so far into this video. Gold star for you. I don't know how you've done it, but also, like, how was your reading experience for this series? How do you feel about the conclusion of the series? Who are the people that you cry over the most? All of these questions and more. I would love to hear about your experience with this, because I feel like my experience with this has been quite clear by this point. Otherwise, that's it. I hope you have a really lovely day. I will see you next time for something different.